Hey everyone, Matt Galogly here, back from vacation. And today, what I want to talk to you about is taking a vacation. When was the last time you took a 7 day vacation and didn't check in to your practice? When was the last time that you didn't take one of those working vacations where you spend 2 to 3 or 4 hours every morning working on the business or spending your entire time on the vacation fussing and worrying about the business? Well, when I talk to doctors across the country, the one of the big complaints that we hear is they just don't get a chance to take time off in a way. And today's podcast or video podcast, whatever, however you watch this, um, I'm going to dig into more and go into more detail about the 6 levers of your business. Now, today we're going to cover 3 of them, and I'm going to show you how to fix them if they are off. Okay, so I use these levers to manage my businesses and the businesses of other doctors around the country and around the globe. And I'm going to just break down these really simple numbers to you. But most importantly, I'm going to show you how to fix them if they're off. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here because this is one of my favorite topics. I'm a big believer that simplicity is key in a business. I used to think that complexity was like the key to making something work. Is the more complex I can make something, or the more unique and cool I can make something, um, the greater chance I had of profits. And what I actually realized is the more complex I made something, the more chances I had that it wouldn't work. And when I figured out that I could simplify something, the way if I could simplify something, my mentor Rob Berkeley would tell me this, is that if I could simplify something down to a basic set of numbers, then I could very easily figure out what is going on in my business, and I should be able to determine what the fixes would be right off the bat. So I always go back to this analogy of your blood work, right? So as a physician, you are trained to look, or a nurse prac, or a nurse practitioner, or who's ever watching this. I have a lot of med techs or nurses or LPNs and RNs and PAs and all that great stuff. But as a medical professional, you are trained to look at specific vitals. Okay. Now, you probably heard me talk about this, but I really want you to get this because this is how you fix everything. Okay. So even though I'm not a doctor, even though I'm not medically trained, when we opened up our clinics, the erectile dysfunction clinics, the guy that we licensed the idea from showed us how we had to have some basic vitals covered before we could treat a patient. Now, some of the things where we would check and we would ask as we were going through kind of just some big numbers when they would come in. The first thing we would do is we would check their blood pressure, we would check their pulse, right? And if their blood pressure was too high, if it was above a specific number, then we couldn't treat them. If they had sickle cell anemia, we couldn't even see them because the injections that we did could cause problems. Um, if they had if they're on specific type of medication. So these things basically eliminated. If they didn't, then it was a go zone, right? And then we had this process that we would go through, and we actually had our dosing down based on their age, their weight, their ethnicity, and the kind of pills that they took, which was incredibly fascinating to me. And what it really reinforced to me is that if we could do that with a patient, we certainly can do it with a business. And so we really began to really just simplify our business to a couple of really key metrics. Now, the first key metrics I want to focus in on today is the first three, and that is inquiries, new patient evals, or otherwise known as NPEs, and conversions. Okay. Now let's talk about inquiries. Now, an inquiry is somebody who is calling you for the first time or inquiring about your practice for the first time. Okay. Now your staff, and I will tell you the number one position that you have to have on your staff is a great front desk person who's phenomenal on the phone, who loves to be on the phone, who will follow scripts, who are absolutely outstanding on the phone. Now, occasionally I get someone who will say, "Oh, my staff doesn't like to use scripts." Well, then you find new staff like Joanne is doing. Joanne texted me emailed me a couple of weeks ago and basically let me know that her front desk person was leaving because she wouldn't follow the scripts. Okay. So you have to look at the number of inquiries. Okay. How many pure new inquiries are you getting per week? And the reason why this is important to track is everything in this side right now is math. Okay. This is very simple math equations. And So then the next thing is we have to talk about new patient evals, which we'll talk about here in a second, and then we're going to talk about conversions. Okay, so let me give you some basic numbers. We want to convert 70% of our new inquiries, first time they're calling us, 70% of them into a booked appointment. If you do not know that number, if you do not know how many new inquiries are calling each and every single day, and how many of those are booking into a new appointment, then this is the first number in your business, and I can't begin to fix you. Okay. If you don't have those numbers right now, that's fine. I can show you how to do it. Right. So the first thing we have to know is how many new inquiries do we get? Now, the problem with this number is generally made up. It's usually given to us by the front desk staff who are going to fudge the number because they don't want to make it look like they're not doing their work. So what do? I like to use software like CallRail that'll track the number of new inquiries that come into my practice. This will give me a fairly scientific number that will tell me exactly how many new inquiries I have coming in. In addition to that, for my web inquiries, form inquiries, it's any new forms that I have come in. Okay, so we want to convert 70% of those into appointments. Now, the problem with this is that a lot of you will say, oh, we get those web inquiries, but they never convert into anything. And I'm going to tell you why that's the case here in just a minute. I'll tell you what you're doing wrong. Okay. And so what we're really looking for is phone inquiries, we should be converting about 85%. Web inquiries, we should be converting 50% of those. Okay. Now let's talk about these web inquiries. So a web inquiry is clearly that somebody fills out some kind of contact form. Now, web inquiries have different levels of quality. Most of you get web inquiries that are name, first name, email, and phone number. And what happens is that your front desk staff or your staff doesn't contact them soon enough and frequently. They don't do it as quickly as they can, and they don't do it numerous times. We've tracked this in our clinics, and I've worked with this with my members in my private client group. The optimal number of phone calls and emails that you need to make to somebody who is inquired via a web form is you have to contact them 4 times via phone and 4 times via email in the first 24 hours. Now, you might be going, oh, but Matt, that sounds too aggressive and I don't want to be too pushy. You're paying money for those. Okay. Every time you get a web form, it's costing you, an inquiry is costing you $90 to $150. Think about that. And you don't want to be too pushy. You've got to do the work to get the people to come in. I'm not going to lie to you, right? Some people want this to just be, oh, I'm just going to show up. I mean, this is the great pitch, right? This is the great pitch on Facebook. Just come into your clinic every single day and your calendar will be full. You don't have to do anything. Well, of course, who doesn't want that? Everybody wants that. Problem is nobody wants to do the work, the real work, and nobody wants to tell you the work that has to happen by your team and your staff in order to make that happen. Okay. And remember, in our clinics, we were booking 150 appointments per week, new appointments, new inquiries coming in. Between 3 practices, we were booking an average 50 new appointments per week per clinic. That's 150 per week. That's not follow-ups. That's not procedures. That's 150 appointments per week. This is the key. Okay. So, again, I've owned them. I know what it's like to put the money out. I know what it's like to sit there and not have the phone ring or have the phone ring. So I'm not BSing you folks. I'm just telling you the God's honest truth, because unfortunately there's just a lot of BS out there telling you the wrong darn thing. And I see it. And frankly, it incenses me. Okay. And so I want to give you the truth. So reality is that when you get a web inquiry, you need to have your staff contact those folks in as little as 10 to 15 minutes. Let that sink in a second. You need to have your front desk staff, their number one responsibility, the number one thing that your front desk staff is paid to do is to book appointments and get them to show. It's not following up with insurance companies. It's not ordering office supplies. It's none of that. Their number one job, 80% of the time, it's not to draw blood. It's not to be an MA. It's none of that. In fact, don't hire MAs to be your front desk people. Hire people who have front desk phone experience. Okay. Do not hire nurses or LPNs or none of that. Don't do it. Okay. They're not phone people. There's a big difference between phone people and people who do medical stuff. Okay. So they have to contact them within 10 to 15 minutes via phone. Now, if they come in overnight, obviously, the first thing you have to do is call them right away in the morning. Okay. Our front desk staff would get in at 8. Their number one job after they went through the opening checklist, which took them about 10 minutes, was at about 8:10 to start picking up the phone and calling the messages back and getting people. Not to wait till noon. It was the number one thing to do, not to get a donut or go into the back and talk about their weekend. Said, if you want to talk about your weekend, then get here at 7:45. But the moment you punch in, then we go through our checklists, and this is what they did. And this was all checklisted out. Okay. So the other thing is you have to email them right away. And the email is very simple. Hey, I just tried to contact you. I'm going to contact you a number of times today over the next couple of days. You showed that you wanted to book an appointment or find out what more about our offerings or procedures, and take them in. Okay, so you have to have your front desk staff checking these numbers, and they have to be filling out a Excel spreadsheet that gives you the number of new inquiries daily. Okay. Second number, because if the new inquiries are down, and your biggest day for new inquiries should be Monday, the slowest day for new inquiries should be Tuesday. The reason why Monday is the biggest day for new inquiries is because something has happened over the weekend. Okay. That's generally the numbers that we see, is Mondays are the biggest days, Tuesdays are the slower days for new inquiries. But you want to be able to track the number of new inquiries. So let me give you a number. If you want to see, so our numbers are 70% book, and so if we had 10 new inquiries, that'd be 7 appointments booked. Out of those that we would get new patient evals, we would get 5, because you're going to have a couple reschedule. And then if we close 50% of those, then that would be closing 2.5 new patients for every 10. Okay. And so this becomes really simple math. If you're not seeing enough new patients, then you need to fix your front end funnel. And let me tell you something, your front end for inquiries is not just Facebook. Facebook is not a marketing strategy. I'm going to talk about that later in future podcasts, but I'm going to talk specifically why Facebook is not a business. Facebook is a tool. Okay. Facebook is one way of many with paid traffic for you to be able to get people in. And I'll talk more about this as we go along, because too many people rely on just one thing, and that is Facebook. You want to be on Facebook, you want to be on Google, you want to be on YouTube. Those are all great places to be. You want to be buying display ads. Eventually, you want to be doing retargeting. I'll talk about this in future podcasts and future videos. But do not be dependent just upon Facebook. Okay, Facebook is going to get you the largest number of leads generally, but they're going to be sometimes the lowest quality. Okay, so you have to track your inquiries. All right. The second thing is the number of new patient evals. And the reason why this number is important is this is the number of people that come into the clinic. So if we're booking 10 and 5 show, that's a 50% show rate. Okay. Just keeping it really, really simple. If people are not showing, if your number is like 10 to 15%, then most likely what's happening is we are not following the script in the beginning. Okay, if they're not closing 70% of the inquiries in to an appointment, they're not following the script. If they are not showing, then they're most likely not following the script, and they're not doing the confirmation calls. They're depending too much on technology. Okay, I think it's great to do email confirmations and text confirmations, but there's nothing better than a phone call confirmation. And so, and I have scripts for that as well. So you want to do ahead, you've got to make sure if that show rate is below 50%, then I can promise you something's not happening. So for appointments the day before, okay, you need to be contacting those in the morning. Okay. But Matt, there's a lot going on in the morning. Just figure out how to make it work. Okay. You have to. You can't wait till the end of the day to confirm appointments for the next day. Oh, Matt, we confirm our appointments a week later. Track this. It doesn't work as well. You can confirm them a number of times via text and via email. You can do a 72-hour call, and then you can do a 24-hour call. I've tested all of this. I will tell you what works the best is a call 1 day in advance with some emails prior. Okay, we actually have a sequence that we would email people with links to testimonials, and those emails would go out about 3-4 days prior. Okay, um, and basically what would happen is then we would do a phone call follow-up. Okay. Okay. Then the last thing is conversions. Now, a conversion is somebody that signs up that day. If your systems have been done correctly, meaning your staff is using scripts before when people are inquiring, and they are using scripts to call to confirm, and if you are doing email sequences and text sequences and you're sending them information prior, not forms. Okay, I'm not talking about sending them forms like, here's your paperwork, fill out your paperwork. That is not going to motivate somebody to spend money with you. Okay, you have to send them links to testimonials. You have to give them maybe an overview of the office. You need to explain to them what they're going to be experiencing when they come in. Okay, um, then your conversions should be 50% on day of. You need to have it so that people, when they walk in the door, they are ready, willing, and able to buy, that they have very few questions, so that there's very little selling that you do. If those conversions are below 50%, then one of a couple of things is happening. One, you are not following the big money script that all of my clients use. It's 9 questions. If you follow the big money script, I guarantee you will close 50% of your patients. Okay. The second thing is that you're not tracking your numbers. Okay. You're just kind of sort of making it up. You've got to track it each and every single day. You've got to hold yourself accountable to the staff or who's ever doing the closing. If it's not you, then make it who's ever doing it. If you've got a med tech who's really good at selling, then make them do it. But they've got to close 50%. Okay. None of this, people don't have any money. If you're hearing the common objections, people don't have money. They want to check with their doctor. They want to see if their insurance company covers it. Then you're not following the script. It's that simple, folks. I had 9 patient counselors that worked for me over 3 clinics. Each one of them were required to do $100,000 a month. That's over $1 million a year. Okay. And my salespeople were not long-term salespeople. They weren't pushy. I actually trained them usually from the ground up. I usually did not hire people with sales experience. I hired people who loved people, who loved to help people, and then I trained them. Okay. The next thing that's happening is if you're not closing that 50% and they're coming in with a host of questions, then you haven't done a good enough job of pre-educating the patient before they walk into the door. Okay. So those are the first 3 things, and I just went into those in greater detail about how to fix them. Okay. It all comes down to tracking numbers. You should get a spreadsheet each and every single day that gives you these numbers. Here's the number of inquiries. Here's the number of appointments booked. Here's the number of new patient evals, NPEs. Here's the number of conversions, and here's how much revenue we generated. And the reason why that number is important, well, I'll go over that later on this week, and that'll be on Wednesday. All right, that's it for today. As always, I like to keep these nice and tight for you, 15 to 20 minutes. Have yourself a wonderful day. Check your numbers. They're the blood work of your business. They are the vital signs of your business. When I get a doctor who works with me and I can get them to start giving me their numbers each and every single time we talk, or they start tracking their numbers daily, their businesses skyrocket. The very simple reason is it's the same reason why your patient, when they start to track things like their blood pressure or things like that each and every single day or monthly or whatever, however you do it, their health gets better. Okay. So get the health of your practice better. We'll have another one coming out later this week. I'm going to dive into average revenue per transaction and your cost to acquire and why those numbers are so important. But when you get the right spread between the two of them, you can manufacture patients on demand. Have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. See ya.